Dude looks like a lady, but he's also Pope Francis's honored guest speaker at this year's Vatican conference on staying healthy in the Great Reset. Joe Perry, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and Chelsea Clinton teaming up with Pope Francis to do some good. Who would have thought the abomination of desolation would be this cool? By the way, now that we've all been vaccinated, looks like we're going to be needing another jab at least once a year for the rest of our lives, just to stay safe. It's all part of the COVID cult. Finally, it's been weeks of open bars and restaurants in Texas. So when are those Texans going to start dropping like flies? And if they don't start dropping like flies, can we go back to the old normal too? All that and more tonight from the editor's desk. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Mack coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper. Big news out of the Vatican this week. Another great big cool globalist conference is in the works.
The Vatican Pontifical Council for Culture and the Cura Foundation are organizing their 5th international conference from May 6th to 8th. The theme this year is exploring the mind, body, and soul. Speakers will include Anthony Fauci. The conference will conclude with a message from Pope Francis.
Boy, they take themselves seriously over there in the Eternal City. Holy cow. And I think this one's going to be by Zoom, which makes it even funnier. You know, like anyone cares. Like anyone will be watching this thing. But that doesn't change the guest list. It's unbelievable. We've got the CEOs of Moderna and Pfizer. We've got David Feinberg, of Google Health, who's a big AI, artificial intelligence guy, going to help Francis out. We've got pro-aborts, Dr. Anthony Fauci. I mean, just lightning rod guy. And Francis thinks, yeah, let's get Fauci over here. That's going to help, sort of solidify the base. And of course, we've got Chelsea Clinton.
Chelsea Clinton, you kidding?
I'm not kidding. No, we have Chelsea Clinton.
How many women died and how many more women were maimed because of unsafe abortion practices. We just can't go back to that. Like, that's unconscionable to me. But as a deeply religious person, it's also unchristian.
Well, there you go, Francis. And why not? Let's bring Chelsea in there. Wonder where Amy Carter is. She's probably out there somewhere. We should bring her in because that would make the Vatican even more relevant. Who's next, Your Holiness? The guy from Aerosmith? Dude looks like a lady, maybe? Actually, yeah, he will be there. That over there, that thing, that creature, that's Joe Perry, and he'll be speaking at the Vatican too. I'm not sure what Joe's particular expertise. I suppose he said something nice about a child dying of some disease somewhere, so now he's an expert that needs to be consulted. Forget about the scandal that this guy was involved with a rock band. That really, Aerosmith has been degenerate for years. I'm shocked any of them are still alive, from Steven Tyler on down. But, Dude Looks Like a Lady was pretty groundbreaking on all that transgender stuff we got going around. So how seriously should we be taking Pope Francis when he talks about the sacrality of marriage and the complementarity of the sexes, when he just thinks he has to have Joe Perry of Aerosmith addressing the princes of the church? But I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. Last time around in 2018, when they had this same conference, they had Katy I Kissed a Girl Perry instructing the princes of the church on the value of transcendental meditation.
Katy Perry recently met Pope Francis during a trip to the Vatican. The pop star praised the pontiff for his compassionate heart and inclusivity. Perry was at the Vatican over the weekend to speak at a conference on scientific advancements in healthcare.
Who else? Oh, yes, we also have population control guru, Dr. Jane Goodall, I think is how you pronounce her name. Now, she was at last year's World Economic Forum. Of course, there's great sort of crossover now between the Vatican and the World Economic Forum, so that's not surprising at all. But Dr. Jane was at the World Economic Forum last year, positively hysterical over population control concerns. That's her claim to fame, I guess. That's what attracted her attention. Maybe not, because apparently Dr. Jane is also not a big fan of the Catholic Church.
And if you talk about overpopulation and not population control. That's really what got to people. They don't want to be controlled. And then, of course, there's the Catholic Church, and that makes quite a major problem.
It's almost like he's trying, Francis now is trying to antagonize us. You know? He's so woke, he's so intent on appearing to be, Bono with it, that it doesn't even occur to him that the few followers that he still has left in the church might actually throw up their hands and say, enough, we're done. And rest assured, there will not be one word said by a single prince of the church against these people. The Monsignor who runs the thing was already asked if he's going to remind the Pfizer CEOs about the little problem with aborted fetal matter being used to test the vaccines. And his response was, according to Edward Penton's reporting, his response was, no, I don't think we're going to bother them about that. I'm paraphrasing. Look it up on Edward's website or at National Catholic Register. We're not going to bother with that. I'm going to push them on that sort of thing. We're just going to have good conversation. There's not going to be a word, friends. One word spoken to try to convert these. So please don't insult us. Don't insult yourself by deceiving yourself, by playing this game that this has some noble purpose. The Vatican is in bed with the United Nations and the Great Reset crowd and the World Economic Forum. We've been saying this. We've been proving this week after week after week. So if you are one of those cowboy hat guys out there still giving us the 9 reasons for why this is all just fine, please shut up. Because it's no wonder now the big pro-abort, pro-gay marriage guys like Joe Biden are seizing this opportunity to remind the world that we all need to follow the Holy Father when it comes to things like vaccination and the COVID cult.
We share the sentiments of Pope Francis, who has said that getting vaccinated is a moral obligation.
You know what, friends? I want to be really clear about something. I want to follow the science. Honestly, I really do. I go to the doctor. I get my checkups. Lots of things, they're great. I told you years ago that I've got psoriatic arthritis. The science gave me a drug called Humira, which is amazing. It makes me feel 25 years younger. I like science. They do great things. Really, I want to follow the science in this case, too. My question when it comes to the COVID science, however, which science are we to follow? This week's science or last week's science? Because last week, the scientific experts were congratulating themselves on how many of those Johnson & Johnson jabs they had already handed out around the country.
Across the country, a record-breaking stride. Nearly 3.5 million vaccinated in a single day is news that 11 million more doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine are on the way.
Now this week, Johnson & Johnson halted that same vaccine after people started dying from it.
Administration of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine halted Tuesday on the recommendation of the CDC and the FDA after 6 women who received the shot developed an extremely rare type of blood clot. With 7 million shots administered, Dr. LeMay says even 6 cases need to be investigated. But she says there are big concerns in the medical community that this will increase vaccine hesitancy.
Yes, that's right, doctor. It may increase vaccine hesitancy. Just a teeny-weeny little bit. And then there's that little AstraZeneca problem up there in Europe and Canada that we've been hearing about.
Canada's National Advisory Committee on Immunization, or NACI, is recommending an immediate pause in the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine in all individuals less than 55 years of age in Canada. This is based on the evidence of rare instances of vaccine-induced prothrombotic immune thrombocytopenia, or VIPIT, following AstraZeneca vaccination reported in Europe, with associated high case fatality and related serious outcomes.
Well, that's fantastic. Good for you, Canada. You did the right thing. But what about the poor slobs who followed the science last month and were taking the son of a gun vaccine? What about them? And now the Pfizer CEO is out there saying that the survivors of the vaccine will likely need a booster shot next year and that then they need to get vaccinated every year. Did you know this before you got the jab? Did you know you were going to have to be vaccinated every year? But who's going to keep track of it all? I guess maybe what we're going to need is a vaccine passport just to keep us safe. Make sure we get vaccinated annually before we fly or buy groceries or go to the bank. You see? We'll need that vaccine passport. And besides, someday, if we all get vaccinated every year, Might even mean we can take our mask off and have a little cookout.
Give us your best guess then.
I just did.
No, you didn't. You didn't give us a time. When do you think this is going? Are we going to be here 2 years from now wearing masks?
No, I doubt.
Asking Dr. Fauci the same question.
Well, let me answer your ranting again. Let me just.
No, I'm not ranting.
Yes, you are.
No, here's how it works, Dr. Fauci.
Right.
I get to ask you the questions. You're the highest paid official in the United States government. You've given us your advice on baseball, on dating apps, on cruise ships. You told us 0 masks, 1 mask, 2 masks, now back to 1 mask. I'm just asking you, when is it going to end?
Now, I repeat, I'm not anti-vax. But you're saying we got to be forced to be vaccinated? Are you serious? Are you calling me anti-science? If I'm a bit concerned, even CNN's nitwit is concerned about this.
There still seems to be a messaging problem. The week began with the CDC director, as you know, warning of impending doom, and then ending with the CDC saying it's fine for fully vaccinated people to travel within this country without tests or quarantines. Can you help us clear up the confusion? Do you agree there might have been a little confusion over the past week for people who are still wondering what is safe and what's not if I've been vaccinated?
Now, you don't have to be a conservative. You don't have to be a traditionalist.
But what about liberals? You know, the high information by the science people? In a recent Gallup survey, Democrats did much worse than Republicans in getting the right answer to the fundamental question, what are the chances that someone who gets COVID will need to be hospitalized? The answer is between 1% and 5%. 41% of Democrats thought it was over 50%. Another 28% put the chances at 20 to 49. So almost 70% of Democrats are wildly off on this key question and also have a greatly exaggerated view of the danger of COVID-2 and the mortality rate among children. All of which explains why today the states with the highest share of schools that are still closed are all blue states. So if the right-wing media bubble has to own things like climate change denial, shouldn't liberal media have to answer for, how did your audience wind up believing such a bunch of crap about COVID?
You know, and added now to the messaging problem that Costa mentions, you got guys like Governor DeSantis and Governor Greg Abbott out there looking like geniuses. No forced vaccinations, no mask mandates. No, their businesses are all open. Their stadiums are open, right? Full to capacity. And yet, no spikes in the cases. No hospitalizations increasing. No deaths increasing. Are you not seeing this? Those of you who are still buying this, you're still masked up in your car and everything. What do you think when you look at that stadium full of people back to the old normal? What do you think? Doesn't it make you kind of want to do it yourself, maybe? Check it out. Do you think maybe you've been misinformed? Do you think maybe you've been drinking some Kool-Aid here? Do you think maybe they've been playing with you? Because the old normal is working right now down in Texas. Even if Dr. Fauci says, hey, don't believe your lying eyes.
You know, you see the pictures of the Texas Rangers Stadium essentially crowded. We don't want to declare victory prematurely, because we have a virus out there now, this variant that spreads really quite efficiently. And if you pull back on masking and avoiding congregate setting, you're really taking a pretty big risk.
You know what's happening, right? You know what's going on here. These guys need the mask. You see, because the mask is a sign of herd compliance. In my opinion, it's also a sign of herd stupidity, but that's for another program. Herd compliance, that's what it shows. You're wearing your compliance. You see, it keeps us psychologically locked down at the same time. What are they saying? Put on your mask. Put on your mask between sips and bites. This is what they're saying on some of the airlines now, Southwest Airline being one of them. Right? You flew recently, that's what you got. Mask goes up and down. You can put it over your nose, pull it down for a sip, set down the beverage, and put it back up over your nose. This is what grown adults are telling other grown adults to do on the airplanes right now. You know? That's what they're saying. And what are they doing? People say, well, yeah, what I do is I leave it down, and then I look down the aisle, and I keep drinking, and I don't put it back, the mask back up over my nose. They don't even see me. But then on the other hand, You're a grown human being. You're a grown adult. You're sitting there hiding little drinks from the people on the airplane. What's happening? This is Orwell, right? Because they're in your mind. Even when you're cheating a little bit and you're sneaking around without your mask on, they're dominating your thoughts. All you want is to have a drink of soda. And yet he's right there. Big Brother's right there in your face, right there in your head. How long can we go on like that without being driven nuts? You're on an airplane hiding, if at best a small fraction of us are hiding just a little bit, keeping the mask not always up over the nose. That's a recipe for insanity, friends. You know this. You know? What they're saying is wear that mask, put it on every day as a token of your compliance. This is why we've been saying all along, take that mask off to show your non-compliance. And this is scientific. How do I know? Because they don't tell us what kind of mask to wear, do they? They just say, slap anything on your face. Show us that you're compliant. It could be the little gator thing. It could be a snotty handkerchief. It could be a sock. They don't care. Just make sure it's there, because we're telling you to put it there. And even after you're vaccinated, by the way, keep it on your face. We know we're not being logical. It doesn't matter. We're being authoritarian. So you're going to keep it on your face even after you're vaccinated. Every day, in your car, in your home. Why? Simple. Because if we can take our mask off after being vaccinated, the little citizen police department down at the gas station, the little 18-year-olds running the gas counter, the gas station counter, the convenience store counter, guess what? They're not going to know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't been. So what are they going to do? They're going to stop shouting at you when you walk in the store. They're going to stop demanding your compliance. And then what? The citizen police department will not be able to do the bidding of Tony Fauci and Bill Gates anymore throughout the entire country. And when that happens, this whole thing falls apart. The mask is extremely important because they need vaxes and they need masks for control. And the problem, of course, is that freedom has that irritating little way of being contagious.
The largest gathering of Americans in more than a year is happening today as the Texas Rangers open their stadium to 100% capacity for tonight's home opener. That's more than 48,000 people sitting shoulder to shoulder cheering on their team.
Are you actually still afraid of COVID? Really? After all this time? Because I just can't take this seriously anymore. In fact, I stopped taking it seriously a year ago. I don't care anymore. I've run out of dams to give, and I know I'm not alone. Many of you are out there the same way. And we are following the science, because the science says that we've got a 99.7% chance of surviving COVID.
Governor Ron DeSantis also tweeted about the update, saying people in the age groups of 0 to 19 have a 99.997% chance of survival. The age group of 20 to 49, a 99.98% chance. 50 to 69 years old, a 99.5%, and 70 years old and above, a 94.6% chance.
We all know, all of us, we know way too many people who've gotten COVID now, a year later, don't we? Friends, relatives, people, every day, somebody else that I know says, I just got tested positive for COVID. I met a guy last week at a little gathering who came up to me and said, hey, I tested positive for COVID. Does that bother you? Because I don't have to stay if you don't want me to. I said, no, I didn't care. I couldn't care any less. You see, because we all have experience now. We've known too many people who've gotten COVID and who've done just absolutely fine. I think I know one person who was hospitalized, personally. Everybody else got COVID, they were down for a couple of days, and they came back. Well, my own producer got it, and your 75-year-old landlady. Let's throw a little bit of that video up.
I'm a 74-year-old retired nurse, mother of 7, grandmother of 32, soon to be great-grandmother of number 3, and been around the block a few times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've seen a lot of sickness, but you haven't ever been this sick.
Well,
right?
You see, the fact is, friends, that the best little kept secret of 2020 is just about everyone who got COVID survived the damn thing. I mean, the vast majority. Just turn on CNN and tell me how many millions and millions of cases there have been. And out of those millions and millions of cases, 500,000 people have, according to their numbers, which we all know are a little bit skewed, but we'll just give it to them, 500,000 are dead. But out of all the millions and millions of cases, you do the math. The vast majority of people survive. You know? So 500,000 supposedly have died. I'm sorry to hear that. God rest their souls. But did you know that one person dies every 36 seconds in the United States now from cardiovascular disease? Every 36 seconds. So maybe that should be your next pandemic. Maybe we should put that little death ticker on the screens over at CNN so we can all start obsessing over heart health. Because that's what they've done to you. You know this, right? They caused you, using technology, to obsess over COVID. 500,000 dead is not a happy number, but it's a relatively small number. It certainly isn't the number one or number two cause of death in this country. And yet, what are you thinking about constantly? You're thinking about COVID. Even though it affects primarily, even according to characters like Fauci, it affects 80-plus-year-olds the most. People who are already, well, so let's face it, they don't have a lot of years left anyway. So you keep talking about this 500,000. Did you know that on average, 132 Americans died by suicide each and every day over the past year, throughout 2020? 132 Americans died by suicide every day. You know? 1.4 million Americans attempted suicide over the past COVID pandemic nightmare. 1.4 million, mostly younger people, attempted suicide. So when do we get to follow the science on that? When do we get to follow the science when it comes to the kids who are dying of lockdown-induced drug abuse, suicide, depression? You've heard it. You know the statistics. It's all out there. Precious few people are talking about it. Dr. Tony Fauci never talks about it, which is why I despise this man. He doesn't even care. He doesn't even care about the damage this thing is causing to the country, to the economy, to the lives of young people, to the future of millions and millions of kids. So why doesn't the science matter when it comes to all that? Are you really such a bunch of boomers that all you care about is making sure I don't get the COVID? That's you now? Some freak paranoid person hiding under your bed, skipping your Christmas and your Thanksgiving holidays because you're so terrified by what you saw on the TV? That's you? Yeah, no problem with that? You want to keep living like that? Why are we not allowed to ask questions about when this insanity is going to end? Congressman Jim Jordan last week, now famously, he asked the questions because he wants to know. He wiped the floor with Fauci last week. But the geniuses rushed to defend the Holy Father protector Tony Fauci, didn't they?
Well, that happened once in a while. And
so rude.
DC. Well, you know what's interesting is it's so personal. And it is personal.
It's really rude.
They have lied about Dr. Fauci. They have spread conspiracy theories about Dr. Fauci. No personal liberties were taken away. The Supreme Court has reviewed cases. It's sheer idiocy playing for the lowest common denominator.
Is it getting clicks being so rude?
Oh, I see. He was rude. Congressman Jordan was rude. So people are out of work. Let's get this straight. People are out of work. Kids are out of school. Suicide and drug and alcohol abuse rates through the roof. But Jim Jordan, he was rude to Tony Fauci. And one is not rude to the Holy Father, Fauci. No, that's absolutely impermissible. Can't do it. Can't you see what's happening here? Over the past year, you've joined a new religion. You now revere Tony Fauci, just as Catholics once revered their Pope. You've lost objectivity. You're not thinking for yourself anymore. You're letting the church, the cult think for you? You love wearing your mask. That's why it's so easy for them to mask you up, because you've come to like it. You've been so brainwashed, you're enjoying it. You think it's important to show that you're a true believer, that you know your catechism. You memorize the little COVID rules, just like Catholics once memorized the 10 Commandments. Your fear of COVID is like fear of hell. Can't actually see it, but your priests assure you that it's there, and you better damn well be afraid of it. That's what they're preaching and indoctrinating you with. And you still have the temerity, the audacity to say that the Catholic Church was indoctrinating people and how terrible that was. Oh my, that was awful. Look at you. What are you doing? Congressman Jordan is demanding that Pope Fauci, tell us what the science is. Remember, that's what he's saying. He's saying, what is the science behind this? Because you know what? He wants to know. We all want to know how much longer we're going to have to remain prisoners in Gulag planet Earth. Seems like a fair question. Seems like a question a pro-science person might even ask. How long? What is the science behind this? With the CNN Kool-Aid drinkers, they condemn not Fauci, who didn't answer the question, but the heretic, the guy who dared question Fauci. Their version of the Reverend Jim Jones. So what's next? Drink the Kool-Aid to save the planet? You're going to do that? You're going to put your Nikes on and drink the Kool-Aid? You're going to do that? Because that's what happens in cults. So deluded are these people after a year of this mind control, incessant, high-tech mind control. These cult followers now have stopped asking even the most basic and obvious questions, like, for example, if Governors DeSantis and Abbott are such idiots, are so dead wrong for opening up their states and lifting the mask mandates and all that, well, won't they be disgraced pretty soon? Might even be charged of murder, right? Because Texans and Floridians, they're going to start dropping like flies, right? Shouldn't they be dropping like flies already? They're not? Why aren't they? Could it possibly be because Governors DeSantis and Abbott are the ones following the science and not following the cult?
Texas lifted its COVID restrictions recently, and their infection rates went down, in part because of people getting outside to let the sun and wind do their thing. But to many liberals, that can't be right, because Texas and beach-loving Florida have Republican governors. But life is complicated. I've read that the governor of Florida reads. But apparently the governor is also a voracious consumer of the scientific literature. And maybe that's why he protected his most vulnerable population, the elderly, way better than did the governor of New York.
Could it possibly be because they're the ones who have confidence in science, these governors, and people like me, people like most in this audience, we actually have confidence in medicine, in science, rather than in the cult leaders and the crazy people running this thing. We know that people will go to their doctors when they get COVID, just as all my friends have done, the ones who got it most seriously. They went to their doctors, and guess what? They got treatment. See, Dr. Fauci, he doesn't want treatments. He never did. Remember hydroxychloroquine? Remember the war against that therapeutic? Why? Well, because if you can treat COVID, COVID becomes less scary. And if it becomes less scary, you can't use it to lock down the world, can you? And prepare us all for the Great Reset. Can't you see what's going on here? Now, personally, I trust the science. I'm not worried about COVID in the least. What I am worried about is the COVID cult trying to abolish the Constitution and turn our homeland into a gulag. What I am worried about is scientism posing as science. I'm worried about junk science. Put a mask on, it's going to save your life. Oh, all right. That's not science.
If you look at all the mask mandates throughout the country, when we instituted mask mandates, the incidence of the disease went up, particularly in December and January, as we went up exponentially. As the rise in infections occurred, everybody was wearing masks. So there's not a great deal of evidence that mask mandates or economic lockdowns have changed the trajectory.
If you weren't in a cult, you would see, as we are seeing, that this has nothing to do with your health. This is about power. This is about control. And you know what? Right now, these guys are afraid. They're beginning to crack. They're beginning to show some signs they're afraid they might be losing some of this power because people are getting sick and tired of this. People are done with this unless you're a complete CNN Kool-Aid drinker hiding under your bed, locked yourself in a house for the past year, not seeing relatives. That person's hopeless. The rest of the country is moving on. And this is why Fauci's running around calling the vaccines into question, you know? We don't know how long they're going to last. We can't stop them. They won't stop COVID, so you got to stay masked up. You'll need to wear a mask forever. You see? This is a scientist, this is a doctor trying to get you to vaccinate, and yet he's telling you it's not going to save you. You might have viruses blooming in your nasal pharynx and spreading around, so you're going to still need to wear the mask and all that. What is this? This is a scientist? No, this is a guy who's dissuading people.
We've had 90 million vaccines in our country. About 40 to 50 million people have been vaccinated. We've got another 30 million people who have gotten the disease naturally, like I have. And the question is, do they have immunity? But we've always believed that. That's the science of vaccines, is that when you get an infection or you get the vaccination, you develop immunity. And yet he keeps moving the goalposts and saying, well, you might get this variant from South Africa. It's a ridiculous notion, not based on science.
Yeah, once again, Rand Paul is absolutely right. We need to wake up. No, seriously. Wake up. Wake up. It's over. Nothing about this is real. You need to wake up. You need to turn off CNN. And the pandemic is over. Friends, please, for God's sake, let's be done with this. Trust yourself. Trust God. And get the hell out of this cult.
Remnant-TV.com is a project we're really proud of. We've been working on it for a long time. We're tired of being dependent on the far radical left to get our pro-God, pro-life, pro-family message out there. That's got to stop. We need to build our own networks that compete with big tech rather than being beholden to them. You need to know how to find us. You need to start moving over to us so that when we get deplatformed, nothing changes for you, nothing changes for us. We're in a position right now to fight back, and that's exactly what we're doing at remnant-tv.com. I'm Michael Matt from Remnant TV. Click the link below, stay connected, and we'll see you on the front lines.